Part 2, Recurve Tuning. Hi, this is Hussaini, your archery coach and director of the WHO Archery Mission, as well as the director for the Coaches Committee, Archery Association of India. You are in the Level 1 Recurve Bow Specialization Workshop of the WHO Archery Mission and the Archery Association of Tamil Nadu. In this section, you're going to learn about bow setup, installing accessories, nock to bowstring fit, installing an arrow rest, installing a nocking point and tying the nocking point. Well, tuning of a recurve or an Olympic bow and bow setup are the processes by which an archer can adjust the bow and arrow so that the flight problems caused by the archer's paradox can be minimized and good arrow grouping can be achieved. It's very, very important to tune the recurve bow for getting good grouping. The tuning process is a whole system process wherein the bow and all its attachments and the arrow of the archer can be brought in harmony. Any change, simple as it may seem, can affect the bow tune. Something as simple as a new set of finger tabs can have a dramatic effect on a finely tuned bow. Your senior archers will say, I change my finger tab, my arrows are going here and there. The tuning process is a discipline wherein the shooting characteristics of the arrow are modified to optimize performance. Bow setup is a series of equipment-based tasks, whereas tuning is required to accommodate the shot variations caused by the archer. Properly made mashed arrows will group tightly when shot out of a shooting machine. However, an archer shooting the same equipment will experience shot variation. First, let's go down to bow setup. What is now bow setup? Assembling all accessories and then setting each accessory to the ideal setup is known as bow setup. This is the step after you're assembling all the accessories. First, install all accessories. Before starting the bow tuning process, be sure to install every piece of equipment on your bow that you intend to use during shooting. This includes the correct bowstring and all the attachments of the bowstring, bow sight, stabilizers, arrow rest, cushion plunger, counterweights, etc. Choose all personal items as well as your tab, finger tab, chest guard or chest protector and anything else you will need when shooting, as I told in the last section. For example, simply changing a stabilizer can have an error or a big effect on the tune of your bow. Once the equipment is fully assembled, the next phase is the process of achieving well-tuned equipment is a good preliminary setup. If the initial preliminary setup is done properly, the tuning process can be accomplished with little effort. By following these bow setup guidelines in the initial preparation of the equipment, you can eliminate many of the possible tuning problems that can make the process time-consuming and unsuccessful. Adjustments made to the bow, changes in bow components or alterations in shooting form can affect the tune of your equipment. Remember, you and your equipment share a unique relationship and are totally integrated. Any change to either will produce varying results. During the tuning process, it is vitally important that you change not only one variable at a time, otherwise it's going to be very difficult to determine what adjustment caused any grouping change. Next, we'll see the nock to bowstring fit. The force necessary to separate the nock from the bowstring serving is very critical, especially on light draw weight bows that is 35 pounds and under. Nock tension should be tight enough for the arrow to easily support on its own weight when the arrow is hung from the bowstring in a horizontal position, but weak enough so that the arrow will fall if the string is tapped sharply with your finger like this. You put it on a bowstring and then you tap it sharply, the arrow has to fall. In order to get the proper nock fit, you can use either a large or a small groove nock or adjust the serving diameter by choosing different serving material diameters. If the string tension is too loose, there is a danger of the knock slipping out of the string at full drop, causing a dry fire. A dry fire means the arrow drops down there and the limbs are hurt. This could not only damage the bow, but can also cause serious injury to the archer's bow arm. Installation of the arrow rest. A wide variety of arrow rests is available to the archer. They all have one thing in common. They must be fitted so that the angle of the arm assists the arrow to stay on the rest and does not allow the arrow to slide off the rest before the shot is made. The rests range from the simple stick or the plastic variety, they stick it up, the plastic variety, to adjustable metal arms which move away from the arrow as it is shot at shot. High-speed films show that the main function of the arrow rest is to support the arrow during the draw and during the initial movement of the arrow forward. As archer's paradox takes place, the arrow lifts off the rest. The rest needs to be adjusted so that the center of the arrow is contacting the center of the cushion plunger, and the support arm of the rest must be adjusted so that it is not visible past the outside of the arrow shaft when observed from an overall view. Now next is installing the nocking point, the point where you nock your arrows. This is a common step with all recurve bows. Install a movable nocking point on the bowstring. Clamp-on types, like you have these copper ones, are satisfactory and easy to install, but it affects arrow flight. We suggest that you use only a tie-on nocking point. Initially, position the nocking point on the bowstring about 5 mm or 4 mm, 1/4 inch above the square, above the center. The knock of the arrow will be placed above the nocking point. After this nocking point is in place, tie a second nocking point above the first one with sufficient room between the 2 points so that the knock will easily fit in between. This will prevent an arrow from sliding down the string during shooting. Now, tying a nocking point. The tied-on nocking point is made with a short piece, 30 to 50 centimeters, 12 to 20 inches of the same serving material used to serve the string. Use the same serving material. Begin by tying an overhead knot around the bowstring serving. Next, take the free ends, turn them under the bowstring and tighten the knot. Alternate knots above and below the string until you have tied about 8 to 10 knots. End the nocking point by tying the final knot in a square knot. Cut off the loose ends to about 5 mm, about 1/4 inch, and then heat them with a match or lighter. They will burn back to the main knot and fuse the fibers of the string you used for the nocking point. The nocking point can be moved up and down the serving by twisting it, since it acts like a nut and serve the string as a screw. This is the reason you should use the same material as you used for the serving, since you get a perfect thread match. Now, let's move on to tying of a simple knock point. Well, you can do this that I described earlier, or you can just tie a temporary or more simple one. You can use a dental serving material, or dental floss can be used for making a nocking point. Well, so much for this session. In this session, let me remind you again what all we discussed. In this second session of the recurve tuning, we discussed bow setup, we discussed installing accessories, not to bow string fit, we discussed installing an arrow rest properly, the shaft or the plunger and where the arrow rest needs to be, then installing a nocking point, and then we discussed about how to tie the nocking point. Catch you soon with the next part. Let's break up here. Well, again, let me tell you, so the lecture is loaded with information and may not get into your head easily. Well, if it does, you must be a genius. Please listen to the lecture over and over again in your headphones. This will help you understand what I say. Keep repeating till you're thorough with it. I will be explaining every part of this lecture in simple detail, simple language, in your language, in several sessions all through the year with many more lectures till you have completely, totally grasped it and it has gone into your head and your heart. God bless you. Catch you soon. Who?